Here we are. It's one of those weeks for me where I don't know what's up or what's down. I'm just spending way too much time watching hockey. Of course, suffered the trauma of the Leafs 7 abs. So I'm still shaken by all this. Welcome to the program, by the way. If you're just joining us, Dave and Aaron here, and this is our Story Studio Network Daily. And we're going to spend 10 minutes or so a day just yakking about some of the things around business. But Aaron, when I was looking at the aftermath of that complete embarrassing collapse by the Toronto Maple Leafs,
Mhm.
it really spoke to the power of brand. What greater brand is there in professional sport than the Toronto Maple Leafs? But on the other hand, it's also about the expectations of your champions. It's the expectations of your customers, your clients, and they utterly failed there. So it was a great lesson in managing your brand around expectations of
Mhm.
people who actually keep you in business.
Yes, did you need to get that off your chest? Did you
I
need
did. I just really did.
like, you see, you start talking about hockey, and I'm just, uh-huh, uh-huh. We don't live in a hockey town. We're in a multicultural hockey fandom here in Halifax because there's Bruins fans, there's Leafs fans, there's Habs fans. Like, we're a melting pot out here, so there's no allegiance. So it didn't have the same effect really on us, but I see what you're saying. And I think today what we want to talk about is really that concept of branding and branded content because the entire ecosystem landscape has changed. And to give you just a little bit of background for those of folks who do not know me and where my background comes from, of course, I spent the majority of my real job time in a newsroom, but also in the last 8 years I have been deeply entrenched in building a digital lifestyle property and have worked with brands from small mom and pop shops right up to international corporations on various levels of branded content. And because of my time in the newsroom and because of my strategic brain and the way things work, I'm consistently tapped by these companies to help them develop these branded campaigns that resonate. And what I've seen over the last 5 years, talk about expectation, is that the brands who are listening to their customers, clients, what have you, and responding to them with their branded content are really doing well. They've got a customer slash audience first approach to what they're creating. And you shared with me this morning a really interesting Signal Hill put out a blog post talking about how when you look at something like branded content, like a podcast or even a video series, you have to look at it like you're giving your people a gift. And that's the difference between branded content and a commercial, right? A commercial is meant to sell stuff. Your branded content is designed to establish a relationship through service.
And usually an emotional one, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's the most powerful one.
Yes. Oh, okay. My group programs, my masterminds, when I work with my one-on-ones, we always start with emotion. And I'm like, if we don't cry on a call, I'm not doing my job. Like everything I do has to do with tapping into that emotion. So what we're seeing it change in the branded content space is so exciting because it actually lets you expand the kind of things you can talk about, even when you're selling widgets or shoelaces or what have you. Bringing branded content in instead of just thinking of commercials gives you so much more space and leverage, I think.
Yeah, and even in the ad space, you've seen companies do that really well. Nike, for example, if you ask them what business are they in, they'd be wrong to say they're in the business of running shoes. They're in the
Right.
business of making me feel like I can accomplish things beyond my own sense of accomplishment, that just do it. And that's really gets at the idea where when you get to that expectation level with the audience, I love the idea that you talk about giving them a gift because it's about them all of a
Mhm.
sudden. It's not about you and your product or your service for that matter. It's about the relationship that you have developed with them. So the piece that Jeff Vidler posted this morning, I thought was really well done. And one of the things that resonates with me is in that piece that he wrote was that the brand has to be really conscious of not getting in its own way in this
Mhm.
content.
Yeah.
And there's some really great examples of that where corporations, big companies have associated themselves with brand content, and they may only get a mention in the middle of the show or a mid-roll line from the host. That's it. The content itself is not about selling bank products, for example. I've worked on a project with Tony Chapman in Toronto here, Chatter That Matters. And when COVID hit, Tony said we got to talk about the challenges that small businesses, retailers, restaurateurs, entrepreneurs are all
Mhm.
facing right now, and we got to give them some support. And we told these fascinating and compelling stories of resilience and people who were innovators and all those sorts of things. It was sponsored by RBC. Now,
Mhm.
we never in the show did you say, if you want to buy this product at RBC, we can help you finance. They never did that.
Yeah.
They associated themselves with the journey that the entrepreneurs were engaged in and supported them in that with really good advice that wasn't necessarily a RBC product. I thought it was a great example of it.
And what's so cool is that the data also is now reinforcing that those kinds of sponsored sponsorships and branded content actually have a stickiness with the audience where they remember the brand better.
Yeah.
And I think Jeff Vidler called it a feather touch branding approach. I like to call it deep branding. So it's that aligning with the values. So when your corporate sponsor aligns with the value of what you're showing up and talking about on your podcast, there is an emotional connection. Our brains create that connection without much effort. And it's an amazing thing. So the branded podcast, that branded content is a powerful tool. And the other way it gets powerful, and we're talking about corporate brands here, is for your personal brand. We can't forget now that all of us in this digital space, whether you are a solo operator, a small business, a medium sized business, your personal brand matters too. And the same kind of rules apply to corporations making branded content as to just regular people making branded content. So we're seeing this huge shift towards storytelling and towards brand association. And I love that the data backs up what I feel like I've always known.
One of the things that, well, yeah, really, and I love one of the things that we came across a while ago, and I shared it with you, was the Trader Joe's
Yeah,
podcast. Who would have thought
it is
that
the
people would be
best.
interested? It's an incredible podcast, but it
It's
gets to the
so
point, right?
Yeah, it's so well done, and it doesn't tell the story of it's not shop at Trader Joe's and read our flyer. It tells the story of how they figured out what to put in the flyer. It tells the story of there's this one episode all about this coconut chicken that nobody thought anybody was gonna like, and this one Trader Joe's put the coconut chicken in this one place, and they interviewed the store manager, and they interviewed the customers, and they told this story 20 minutes. You're listening to this story about coconut chicken. And all I can think now, that was a year ago. All I can think is, man, next time when the borders open, I go to the States, I'm going to Trader Joe's. I'm going to buy myself some coconut chicken.
It just
It
is. It's
works.
that it absolutely does, and to your point, it's driven by listening to your audience.
Yeah.
And you will know when we both worked in newsrooms how often the mistakes were made in that media setting where the anchors thought it was all about them.
Yep.
And as soon as you get there, you fail until you realize that everything you say, do, the stories you select have to be about your audience. If there's not a you in this story, it's worthless. And so that's where we're going with this, the idea that the success around audio on demand right now is about making it audience first because the audience chooses you and
Mhm.
they have expectations that are higher than they might with mainstream media. And once they're on board, you've got champions for life.
And we're hitting our 10 minutes here. So let's tease what we're going to talk about tomorrow because there's a couple other things coming out of this that I think are important to address. So, first of all, I want to talk more about this concept of permission based marketing. The audience chooses you when
Yeah.
you have a podcast. And I also want to talk about the other show we're standing up, The Next Normal, but there's another one that we're going to be standing up and we're actually looking for people to be involved in that. We can talk about that later this week.
Okay. We'll be back at it about this time tomorrow, right here on the Facebook page. Have a great day. See ya.
Bye.